list of potential investors, they need to be seeing you as the go-to guy or gal as a professional real estate investor. Lots of ways to do this. One of the best ways, Chris, is something that you do all the time.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have Dave Dubeau. Dave is a podcast host and creator of the Money Partner Formula, which he previously shared when he was on the podcast last year. He and his team work with mom and pop real estate investors, providing done-for-you marketing services to help them raise capital. He's a best-selling author and speaker based in beautiful British Columbia, Canada, where I have a soft spot because my wife's from there. And he began his real estate investing career in 2003, doing 18 deals in 18 months. And nowadays he invests passively in multifamily properties. He's got a new podcast out, the How to Raise Capital 101 show. And today Dave is going to share his step-by-step process so you can learn how you can raise capital, you can scale, and you can grow your real estate investing business as well. Dave, welcome to the show.
Big Chris, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you.
Absolutely. It's great to see you too. As I mentioned in the intro here, you are from Canada, just like my wife. And it's always a treat to have people on the podcast from other countries. But I have a real affinity in my heart for Canadians. I got to tell you that.
Well, that's great. Where's your wife from again?
She's from Montreal.
French Canadian wife.
Yeah.
So I've got the French name, but I don't speak it, which is really kind of frustrating. But anyhow, yes, your listeners will pick up on my accent sooner or later.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, her last name's Arnold, which is not French at all. But her dad's from Tennessee, which is fortunately how we ended up meeting. She got herself down here. But enough about that. Dave, I was listening to an episode of your new podcast, which I know you're going to tell the audience about at the end of the show here today. But we both work with investors, a lot of passive investors. But what you do, Dave, is you also help people. You teach them how to raise capital. And I know in the back of a lot of people's minds, they're like, I could do this. I want to do deals, or I do deals. I want to do bigger deals. Mm-hmm. And I was having a conversation earlier this week with a coaching client, and he's putting a deal together, and he was struggling with this capital raise piece. I wish we had this conversation a week ago. I could have put you guys in touch. And he was so excited because he found a guy, and he said, he's going to raise money for him. And he said, wow, this is great. And his friend that is going to raise money for him said, oh, this is easy. He's like, you guys are going to do everything else. And what's funny is my friend was saying, I'm thinking this is the hardest part. Dave, tell us a little bit about how you've gone from working with passive investors to now teaching people as well how to raise capital for themselves and do bigger deals.
Yeah, well, you know how this came about, Chris, was actually years ago when I first took a crack at to raise capital myself. I crashed and burned, to be perfectly frank with you. And the embarrassing thing is I crashed and burned on a single family home deal. Not like even it was some big, massive deal that I had to raise millions of dollars for. I was trying to raise $85,000 to buy a single family home. But I didn't have any experience. And like a lot of people, I had heard the guru say, hey, you know what? If you just find a really good deal, then the money's going to find you. And I said, well, that kind of makes sense, right? Who can resist a really good deal? Well, I'd like to figure out whoever said that in the first place. I'd smack that person upside the head because I drank that Kool-Aid. But I knew it wasn't going to be like The Secret where, the money, I was just going to send it out there to the universe and magically the money would land in my bank account. I knew I'd had to do some stuff. So I had this deal under contract. I had like 10 days to remove financing subjects. And I started scrambling, right? Because I was under the gun. I had the deal. I needed to raise the cash. Even though it was only $85,000, that's still a fair chunk of change for a lot of people. So yeah. I think that was around the time. Do you remember that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street? Remember that movie?
Oh, yeah. Love it.
So Leonardo DiCaprio and all those guys made it look so much fun to pick up the phone and dial for dollars and cold people. So I thought, hey, I'll try that. Looks like that works pretty good. Picked up the phone, rejected.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd love to say I crashed hundreds of calls and raise the money. I didn't, Chris, because I'm a sensitive soul underneath this rough exterior. And I could only handle like a dozen of these rejections. And then I quit, and I pouted about being rejected so much. So cold calling wasn't working for me. Then I'd also heard, but I wasted some time on it. So I'm running out of time. I'd also heard, hey, if you need to raise money fast, go out and network and schmooze with people and use your elevator pitch and turn every conversation into a real estate conversation. So I thought, hey, okay, well, I'll give that a try too. So out to the local BNI and Chamber of Commerce and Toastmasters and wherever the heck I could get in the door with my business cards. And I networked up a storm and schmoozed up a storm and 30-second commercialed up a storm. And all I got from all of that, Chris, was a bunch of weird looks from people. It comes across so desperate and creepy. I just 2020 hindsight, I was just turning people off. Plus, I think about it, even though this is only $85,000, if I'm going to a complete stranger, for somebody to invest 85 grand with you, they need to know you. They probably need to like you, and they certainly need to trust you with their money, right? So I'm going out to strangers. They didn't know me. They didn't like me, and they certainly did not trust me with their 85 grand. So no surprise, nobody invested with me. So by this time, I can remember this vividly, Chris, even though this is quite a long time ago now. It's like Wednesday, and I got to remove the subjects on Friday, and I'm sweating bullets, and I come up with a brilliant idea. And I think to myself, hey, Dave, if just enough people see this deal, it's going to sell itself. So I did one really smart thing and I did one really stupid thing. But the really smart thing I did, Chris, was I put together a list of a couple of hundred people, prospective investors, people that I already knew, there were people in my network. I already had a pre-existing relationship with these people. So that was smart. I got them all set up in my email autoresponder system. But then the really stupid thing I did was I emailed them all. I spammed them basically a PDF overview of my deal. And basically the long and the short of the message was, hey, it's Dave. I got a deal. Have you got any dough? Wasn't quite that bad, but pretty close. I can remember it. I sent that out. It was a Wednesday night. I got up Thursday morning. I looked at my inbox and I was so elated because there were a bunch of responses that came in. But then I started reading. I think you can probably guess they pretty much all said. So they all pretty much said the same thing. Dave, I haven't heard from you in quite a while. And here you are hitting me up for cash for a deal. And you need it yesterday. Take a hike, right? Yeah. One guy had not heard from me in 18 years. And that was the first message he got from me.
And you had his email.
I had his email somehow. I don't know how the hell that happened, but yeah. Bottom line is, Chris, I didn't raise the money deal. I turned off a lot of really good prospective investors because I was so clumsy about it. And I got some major egg on my face. So I live in a fairly small community. So obviously I ticked off the seller big time because I tied up his property for a couple of weeks. I ticked off my realtor, his realtor, mortgage broker. I had a tenant lined up for this property already. Yeah. They'd given notice where they're living before. So it was a real kerfuffle.
Yeah.
And then when the whole thing finished and I quit pouting, I sat down and I thought, my goodness, there has to be a better way to do this. And I have a background in marketing. I thought, why don't I try applying some intelligent marketing strategies to this whole raising capital thing?
Yeah.
And then why don't I try to get my investor ducks in a row first and then go looking for deals? That way I'm not scrambling last minute. So I came up with this thing that I call my money partner formula. I started doing that with single family home deals when I was doing that strategy. Then when I moved up into multifamily deals, started using the same process with multifamilies. And for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been working literally with hundreds of other real estate entrepreneurs around North America, helping them to implement this strategy as well. So
today's show is sponsored by Money Insights and their investment optimizer strategy. In my book, I share how I used this same strategy starting over a decade ago to invest my money in 2 places at one time. This strategy has been used by the wealthiest for generations for estate planning, minimizing taxes, preserving wealth, and increasing stability for their investments. Now you can do the same thing. In addition, you can build a plan to build an emergency fund, pay for college, fund a business, plan for retirement, and ultimately optimize your total financial picture. To find out more information, check us out at the banking link at nextlevelincome.com. So, I mean, you went through like your scenario. So now you're working with multiple different investors, and I remember my experience. So, and I was in sales since I was like, I tell people 12 years old. I was selling wrapping paper door to door,
Right.
not for a school. And then I had a
No,
paper
you're
route and
making
all
your
this
own
stuff.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to make some money. And I actually had I sold knives for Cutco, which,
Hey, my daughter sold knives for Cutco as well.
yeah.
Wonderful experience. Yeah.
Well, that's fun. You either hear two things. You hear, hey, like you just said, hey, or you hear, oh, yeah, I sold knives for Cutco. That was
Well, she didn't make any money, but she got some great experience.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. I remember like, just calling people and getting appointments, and cold calling's rough. But I got a lot of experience, and then being in sales for, like professionally for 2 decades. I'll still never forget picking up the phone and standing there. In my old office, looking out the window, just staring at the phone. Like, what am I going to say to these people and do? I just did the reps, and eventually, like, as we talked about before the show, stumbled through, but I think a lot of people think it's easy, or a lot of people don't want to do it all. Dave, what are the big mistakes that people make?
Yeah, well,
when they
the
go
first
through this
big
process?
mistake there, Chris. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Here you are, a guy coming in with a ton of sales experience.
Yeah.
However, you're the exception to the rule. The vast majority of people have zero sales and marketing experience, and if hell, I had quite a bit of marketing experience. I didn't have any direct sales experience, or not very much. So that's why I sucked so much at the whole dialing for dollars type thing. So imagine a guy like you that's good at it, still struggling with it. So the average human being is it's just overwhelming. So that's the big challenge. So many people think that they have to do it that way, that they even get started, because most folks would rather stick a needle in their eyeball than pick up the phone and dial for dollars or cold call somebody to try and raise capital. So they even get started because they think they need to be some sort of a sales whiz. So some of the big mistakes, are all the ones that I made. So I share a story with you. Big mistake I made was waiting until I had a deal in hand and then scrambling to try and raise capital after I already had on hand. And the challenge with that,
waiting. Yep.
Well, the challenge with that is the desperation just oozes through every pore in your body. And I don't care how good.
Yeah, it's terrible.
In sales speak, you've got commission breath, right? You need to make the sale, quote unquote, to get the deal. And that's terrible positioning to have. So ideally, chicken and the egg, you should get your investor ducks in a row first, and then go make her on the deal. And at rock bottom, be doing both at the same time. So if you're looking for deals, be looking for investors at the same time. Go hand in hand. So that's a big mistake, waiting till you got a deal on the go. Another one is doing what I did there. And maybe you did, but you were more successful at it, which is just kind of rushing in cold, picking up that phone and or whatever it is, and just hitting people up with your deal cold right off the get-go without warming them up first, right? So when I spammed everybody my deal, putting together that list of that group of potential investors was really smart. However, it was really clumsy and really not very cool to just go straight for the jugular and say, hey, I got this deal. Have you got any money? So when we're working with clients, or when I'm teaching people about this, the first step is really to reconnect with the folks on a personal level first, and prime the pump and set the stage for that real estate conversation a little ways down the road. So have a little bit of a delay there, delayed gratification. It's going to pay you off in spades down the road if you just warm them up first. We got a whole process I'm happy to share with you that we call a warm-up campaign for doing that. And the great thing is you can automate the vast majority of it and do this on an efficient manner, but you want to break the ice first before you start talking real estate. And then here's a big one, Chris. Now, I don't know about you, but I had this mistake back in the day, and I see so many people making it these days too. And that is just kind of going out and shotgunning your deal to everybody and anybody in the universe, right?
Right.
And the challenge when we're going out and we're starting to do our spiel to complete strangers, there's two challenges. Number one, the problem I had when I was networking up a storm and trying to pitch people on my deals is, you're starting from scratch, right? Going out to strangers, they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. Why the heck are they going to invest 50 or 100 grand with you? They aren't, right? Very, very difficult. So you're starting from scratch. You have to build a relationship from the ground floor right there. So that's very tough to do. And then the second challenge, this pesky little entity that you have in the States called the Securities and Exchange Commission. And each state has some version thereof as well. So you got the federal, you got a state ones. Up here in Canada, we don't have it any better. We have provincial securities regulators. They're just as nasty as the SEC. The rules are pretty much the same. So basically, they all say it's illegal for us as a mom and pop real estate investor to be pitching our deals to strangers, to be soliciting investments from strangers, right? So I don't want anybody to, have to look fashionable in orange. So we don't want anybody going to jail.
Orange is not the new black, right?
Yeah, it's let's just stay away from orange. So the logical place to start, especially when you're just getting going with raising capital, is tapping into your existing network first, right? Because it's the only logical place to start. It's the fastest place to start. It's the safest place to start. And it's the most likely for success place for you to start as well. So that's another big mistake, is just trying to pitch your deals to the general public to pitch it to strangers.
Yeah. No, I think those are great. And I think I remember when I was doing my MBA, I read a book and it was called something to the effect, and I think I'm getting this right. It was called Build Your Parachute Before You Jump.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And it was, and it was that book and a couple others that talked about the value of networking. And being in a career, I was like, this is a good idea. Stay in touch with people. You never know. And then I had a couple opportunities where I was moving to a new company and people vouched for me. I was like, wow, this really works. And I think the cool thing is with technologies like LinkedIn, it's easier than ever to stay in touch. But what I've noticed is I get people to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Dave, and now it's like spam. So I use LinkedIn a lot. But what is your opinion on social media and how do you integrate that into your system?
Well, we actually don't integrate social media into this system. We focus primarily on email. And the reason why we do email is just because it's so much simpler and it's so much easier to automate. Because if I tell people, hey, you know what, private message 50 people a day, every day for the next whatever, they might do a day and a half, and then it's going to fizzle out. It's not going to happen. Versus if we have everything set up in a CRM system, email autoresponder system, then you can kind of set things and forget things.
Right.
And that's going to make it much more likely to happen. Now, there's not a place for social media, especially for LinkedIn. Right. I think social media is a great place to grow your network and make new connections. However, you have to be very, very careful about being perceived as soliciting investors from social media, because again, it's a public platform. That said, it's a great place to make those connections and start the relationship, which once you feel comfortable with it, then you can switch that over and bring them into your sphere of potential investors, add them to your marketing list via email.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think it is. I think social media, it's a tool to make connections or even strengthen connections with people that you've already had out there. Because I really do get turned off when people are soliciting me for whatever it is, or they send you this message and you're like, did you even read my website or my bio?
No, they didn't, and they probably got a VA to do that anyhow. So
yeah. So it does turn me off a little bit. I think it's kind of we got to be very careful with that. So I mentioned my coaching client, my friend, and he was I wish you reached, we had this conversation a little bit earlier. But your new podcast, How to Raise Capital 101 show, you mentioned how the first several episodes are like a mini course in how to raise six figures in a matter of weeks. Right. And I read that. I was like, whoa, this is pretty wild. I want everybody to check out your podcast, and if you could tell them where to find it, but maybe you could give us a summary, Dave, of what they will learn in those first episodes. If somebody's listening and wants to go out and learn how to raise their first seven figures.
Yeah, well, perfect. So the first 9 episodes of the new podcast go through what I call my money partner formula. And it's quite simple. It's 3 phases, and each phase has 3 steps. That's why it's 3 by 3. That's 9 episodes. So the first phase is what we call our foundational phase. And the first step of that is creating what I call your dream 200 list of prospective investors. And that is people that you already have a pre-existing relationship with. So friends, family members, coworkers, business associates, people from sporting groups, civic organizations, whatever you're into. You know them, they know you. So let's create a target group of a couple of hundred of those people, and we're going to focus all of our efforts on that small group, right? Relatively speaking, small group. Yeah. So that's the first step. Then part of the other part of the foundation is we got to figure out a way to communicate with these people. So we're going to get them all set up in a CRM system, an email autoresponder, but we also have to have some sort of a hub, which is going to be our communications hub. So we create what we call an investor-focused website. And that's where you're going to host all of your marketing materials, whatever it is you're going to be doing. We'll talk about it in a few seconds, but that's where it's going to be hosted. So everything comes from your website and brings people back to your website to check out what you're all about. And ideally, click a big button to book a meeting, to book a call, right? That's the whole goal. The whole goal of this money partner formula is to get you investor meeting booked on your calendar. Instead of you chasing after people, have people coming to you wanting the information from you. That's a complete 180 versus us convincing people.
You're in Canada, it's the bear in the stream, right? The bear in the
bear
river
in the stream, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The fish swimming into the bear's mouth. Not like me with the fly fish trying to fly around.
There you go. Yeah. It's like having a net instead of the fly rod. Not that I'm a fisherman, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So
all right. So step 1, foundation phase. What do we have for step 2?
Well, step 2 is have that investor focused website. And gotcha. Then the other part of the foundation phase is we want to make sure when somebody does book a meeting with us, we've got something to show them. So I call this your $1 million investor presentation. And what's really important to remember here, Chris, is you are self-admittedly a real estate nerd. Okay. Now you're at the extreme because you love a lot of stuff even the rest of us real estate nerds don't like. But here's the reality. Most people don't give a flying what about real estate or real estate investing. And we don't want to overcomplicate things for them. So we got to simplify, we got to dumb it down, we got to keep it super simple. So you want to have a good slide deck presentation that walks people through what you're up to with real estate investing without overwhelming them, confusing them, without having too much jargon and trying to explain what IRRs are and NOIs are and cap rates are, all this kind of stuff that just you and I geek out on, but the average person is going to feel stupid because they don't understand it, right? So we got to simplify it. So there's the first 3 steps. Create your target group of potential investors, have a website to communicate with them, and have a good presentation ready to go. So once we've got that foundation laid, now we're ready to launch. That's the second phase.
Got it. Launch phase.
So step number 4 is now we're going to warm people. We're going to reconnect with them on a personal level first before we start talking real estate. And this is what we call our warm-up campaign. 3 little emails. And again, I go over all of this in episode number 4 of the new podcast, go into it in great detail. But basically, we want to reconnect with people on a level first via email and encourage them to let us know how they're doing as well. And here's the thing. A lot of people worry, well, if I got 200 people on my list, I don't have time to have 100 reconnections. Well, you can automate most of this And chances are out of 200 people, you probably have 30 or 40 of them actually reach back out to you. And that's great because you've got capital in those connections. So we warm them up first, set the stage, prime the pump. The next step, step number 5, is we are going to get some friendly practice presentations under our belt with actual people. And I call this our ninja strategy because it's kind of a stealthy way to get a bunch of anywhere between 10 and 20 investor meetings booked right away with no pressure on the other, no pressure on you, and a very high likelihood of you raising that first 6 figures in a very short period of time. So that's step number 5 is ninja process. And then step number 6 is now we're going to press go with our marketing. And I call this constant and consistent edutaining communication. So Chris, you do a wonderful job with this because you've got your own podcast. So every time you're doing a new podcast episode, you let people on your list know about it, and it gives them an opportunity to consume more information from you. So we want to, not everybody's going to be starting their own podcast. So we want to look at different ways to communicate with people. Some of the stuff that's working really well for our clients these days are having weekly communications. So one week it might be a newsletter. Next week it might be a blog post. Next week it might be a video log. So changing it up, making it a little bit different. And all of it, we keep it edutaining, right? Because we got to rewind.
Edutaining.
We got to, I wish I came up with that. I can't claim responsibility, but that's a great term. Edutaining communication. Because again, our group 200 prospective investors are not real estate weirdos like us. They are normal human beings. So we want to educate them a little bit without overwhelming them and hopefully entertain them a little bit and tell them exactly what we want them to do. Hey, if you want to find out more, click on the link below, book a call. Let's have a conversation, see if this is a good fit for you. Does that make sense?
I think that's great. And I wish, I did this all backwards. So we started the podcast. It turned out to serve, a couple of different purposes, but we did it for the educational perspective. But there's a lot of people out, I have these conversations, Dave, and people say, well, I don't want to do a podcast. I don't want to write a book. I think the neat thing is today, what I've learned is you can do what you like to do. You can write, you can do video, you can do audio, and you can hire people to convert it to other stuff. They can take a video and turn it into a blog. So what do you tell people? People say, hey, Dave, I'm an engineer. I'm not a great writer. I can talk a little bit, but
that's my primary business, Chris, is we realize most people are boat. So we offer done for you services where we actually create all of this stuff for our clients. We provide them the big red easy button so they don't have to worry about it.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah. But I agree with you 100%. If you are a do-it-yourself kind of person, fantastic. Do exactly what Chris recommends. Or figure out what it is that you enjoy doing and then focus on that. So, for example, I'm not much into writing myself, Chris. I don't enjoy writing, but I'm so damn good looking.
Written a few books.
I have. I've had a few books written. They're my ideas. I've spoken it. Somebody else has written it, right? So
case in point. Wow, we didn't even rehearse that. That was perfect.
So you and I are good looking. That's probably why we like the video stuff, right? Plus we have the radio voice. So I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you guys, but I enjoy doing
that's stuff. The entertainment part of the podcast.
There you go. So I enjoy doing this stuff. There's nothing to stop you from getting your video or audio transcribed and then giving that to somebody who's good at writing to polish that up and turn that into articles, blog posts, letter article, whatever you want. That's how you can do it. So you can recycle. Perfect. You don't have to do it yourself. Somebody else can do that for you.
I love it. All right. So we got to the edutainment part here. Let's
wrap the marketing side of things.
Yeah. Let's wrap up the final steps here.
All right. So then we get to the leverage stage. So when we're doing this with clients, these first 2 stages take the first 8 to 10 weeks, give or take. And then now we're ready to start leveraging things. And the first thing I like to do in leverage, and this would be episode, let me count, 7 of the new podcast, is doing webinars. So instead of doing all these just one-on-one presentations, which are great, now it's time to leverage things and start going one to many. So getting 5 and 15, 20 people on a Zoom call all at the same time and walking them through a presentation, creating that curiosity, getting investor meetings booked from that. So webinars are great. That's the number one way I've raised capital since 2013. They can work like gangbusters. And then the next part is continuity. And I see so many people screwing this up, Chris. They get off to a good start. They pump out content and marketing for the first couple of months and get busy. They got a brand new deal on the go, something's going on, and they get sidetracked, and then they lose momentum. And then it's very, very difficult to start up again. So you want to make sure that you've got that continuity, that you're always communicating with your list. And you come from a sales background. You probably remember the stats of how many sales are generated from contact number 7 through 15, yet the vast majority of people don't make more than 2 or 3 contacts, right? So we want to make sure that we don't only get top of mind with our prospective investors, but we stay so that we're the guys and gals that they're thinking of when they're ready, willing, and able to invest. Because
I think
if you do all of this, you're going to be able to get the hanging fruit. You're going to be able to get the people that are keen and ready to go right away, which might represent about 15% of the total capital available to you. However, the lion's share, the 85%, that's going to come in somewhere between month number 4 and month 18 to 24. If you stay in touch with people, right? This is how you're able to start going from the 6 figures up to the 7 figures of capital raised. It really is about that consistency. So that's the one. And then last but not least is boosting your credibility, being seen as an authority, not necessarily a big time podcaster like Chris Larson, not necessarily the next Robert Kiyosaki selling a gazillion copies of a purple book, but within your 200 list of potential investors, they need to be seeing you as the go-to guy or gal as a professional real estate investor. Lots of ways to do this. One of the best ways, Chris, is something that you do all the time, right? Is get interviewed on somebody else's podcast, right? Or write a book or speak, get involved with your local RIA or real estate investment club and actually speak on stages, these kind of things. So lots of different things that you can do to be up in the eyes of your investors. So there you have it. There's a snapshot.
No, like I said, I wish I knew this when I first started, Dave. I kind of
me too, but
me too.
I wish I knew this when I first started.
This formula is phenomenal. And look, I will tell you the continuity piece. Last year I had an investor reach out to me, and apparently they've been following along for 3 years. Wow. And they've been getting the emails, and they said, "Hey, we have some money." And he ended up investing $10 million last year.
Holy crap.
Yeah, he had and I hadn't spoken to him in a couple of years, but so to the continuity piece, if I hadn't had the system in place to stay in touch, and that's what I hear. A lot of people wait till they have a deal and they reach out and they don't have that continuity piece. It takes discipline. So knowing these steps, knowing these formulas, if you are interested in doing more deals and doing bigger deals, if you want to go out and raise your own capital, please go check out Dave's new podcast, the How to Raise Capital 101 Show. We're going to have the link in the show notes. Dave, how can they find out about that?
Yeah, so wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening to this one, you can find ours. It's called the How to Raise Capital 101 Show, or you can check it out on our website, and that's raisecapital101show.com. And like we said, the first 9 episodes are a mini course walking you through the 9 steps of my money partner formula. So no opt-in required. You can just go check that out on your podcast platform of choice. And if you like it, leave me an honest rating and review. I'd really appreciate it.